We begin this morning with those guilty verdicts related to the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol.
4 of 5 members of the far-right organization, the Proud Boys, were found guilty of seditious conspiracy charges. The 5th, Dominic Pizzola, was the only one found not guilty on those charges. Attorney General Merrick Garland praised the jury's decision, saying the Proud Boys played a central role in how the events on January 6th unfolded. This is the 3rd seditious conspiracy case brought on by the Justice Department since the attack on the Capitol more than 2 years ago. The defendants in those other cases were also found guilty. For more on all this, let's bring in NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Ken, good morning. Let's start with the big picture here. These are serious felony charges. What did this jury verdict, what does it mean for the Justice Department and its investigations into the people who were involved in the attack on the Capitol?
Good morning, Joe. Look, this is a big vindication for the Justice Department. There were some legal experts that argued that the charge of seditious conspiracy was a risky one to bring. It's a Civil War era law, rarely applied. They've now won in 3 cases. And what that verdict says is that this wasn't just a riot. It wasn't just a disturbance where some people got violent. This was an organized and planned application of violence with the goal of trying to stop the transfer of power. That's what this jury found. The prosecution argued that these Proud Boys believed that they were acting as Donald Trump's army. That was the term prosecutors used. And the Proud Boys themselves testified that they were motivated to come that day on January 6th because of things that Donald Trump said. So it's a major vindication of the Justice Department, and it's part of a bigger picture where the DOJ is conducting its largest investigation in its history, more than 1,000 arrests so far, more than 600 convictions, trying to bring to justice everyone who came to the Capitol and broke the law that day, Joe.
Yeah. Hey, Kenneth, Savannah, you mentioned some of those things that we actually heard from the former president, and we do know that Special Counsel Jack Smith is looking into Trump's possible connections to January 6th, their responsibility there. Does this conviction impact that case in any way? Strengthen it, weaken it? What's the connection there?
That's a great question, Savannah. It's not entirely clear. Some legal experts believe that it does strengthen Jack Smith's hand. Look, these are 2 different investigations, but they're related, obviously. The goal was the same. Jack Smith, in terms of what he's looking at in January 6th, is examining the white-collar effort to stop the transfer of power, the things that Donald Trump and his allies did by word and by written word and spoken word, trying to put pressure on Mike Pence, for example. There's no evidence that Donald Trump intended for these people to attack the Capitol that day. But to the extent to which any of these witnesses have any information that sheds any light on that, they're now facing decades in prison, these Proud Boys who were convicted. And so that gives Jack Smith leverage to try to extract that evidence if it exists. But just the idea that the jury ruled that Donald Trump's words contributed to the violence that day, many legal experts believe empowers Jack Smith as he conducts this other part of the investigation.
So, Ken, following the verdict yesterday, did we hear any response from the Proud Boys or their lawyers? I mean, what is next for these Proud Boy members?
3 of the 5 lawyers did come out and speak to reporters after the verdict. They expressed disappointment in the verdict, talked about various levels of appeals. Look, appeals of jury verdicts are really difficult to win. What's next is sentencing. And these 5 defendants face decades in prison, conceivably. You know, we talk about the maximums being 50 years or more. What really matters here is what federal sentencing guidelines say. But in this case, given the levels of violence that were discussed in this trial, many experts believe we could be talking about 2 decades or more for some of these defendants, guys.
And Ken, tell us a little bit about when we will have some of those answers in terms of what we are going to see happen for them.
Well, you know, there's a process here. They have to have a pre-sentencing investigation, so it may be many months before we'll see sentences in this case. And meanwhile, the investigation continues. Just last week, a former FBI supervisor was arrested and charged with being at the Capitol, and the DOJ expects to bring hundreds more cases, adding to the 1,000 that they've already brought.
All right, Ken Delaney, and kicking us off this hour. Ken, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. Well, there are urgent warnings this morning about a growing crisis on the southern border. Thousands of migrants are camped on the Mexico side, just waiting for the COVID-era restriction known as Title 42 to end just days from now.
The Secretary of Homeland Security is visiting the border ahead of that expected surge in migrant crossings. NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has more.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is at the southern border defending the Biden administration's response. But meanwhile, in El Paso, local officials are bracing for an expected influx starting next week. While here across the border in Juarez, tent camps have sprung up as many migrants here are waiting to see what happens next. In Juarez, Mexico, local officials estimate at least 10,000 migrants are waiting to cross the U.S. border.
What's been the hardest part? ¿Cuál ha sido lo más duro de esperar aquí?
No tener trabajo, comida.
The hardest part is never having work, food, or water, this man from Guatemala says, telling us he may cross with his 2-year-old son. Others may wait until the U.S. lifts the COVID border restriction known as Title 42 next week.
It's a heartbreaking thing, seeing all these people.
This camp has sprung up right next to that migrant detention center where 40 people died in a fire in late March. It's a haunting reminder of just how dangerous this humanitarian crisis can be. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas visited South Texas under mounting pressure over a record number of illegal border crossings. The Biden administration touting its decision to deploy 1,500 active duty troops to handle administrative tasks.
The president has used the tools that he has in front of him to prepare ahead of Title 42 lifting.
But now critics are firing back.
As long as the Biden administration keeps in place catch and release, he could send 1,500 troops, he could send 10,000 troops. It would do nothing to secure the border.
And across the border in El Paso, officials just announced that they will use vacant schools to temporarily house migrant families beginning next week. Back to you.
All right, Gabe, thank you so much.
Back in New York, the civil rape trial against former President Trump is one step closer to a verdict. Both E. Jean Carroll and Trump rested their cases on Thursday. The jury heard days of harrowing testimony from the writer about the alleged assault, which she says took place in a department store about 30 years ago. Trump has repeatedly denied the accusations. Well, the former president has decided not to take the stand in this case. The judge ruled he has until Sunday evening to change his mind. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen has the latest.
E. Jean Carroll left federal court in Manhattan after resting her battery and defamation civil case that claims former President Donald Trump raped her in a luxury department store fitting room in the spring of 1996. While overseas in Ireland, Trump spent part of his day out on one of his golf courses, teeing up criticism of his accuser, E. Jean Carroll, and the judge, and suggesting he plans an 11th hour appearance to testify.
And I have to go back for a woman that made a false accusation about me, and I have a judge who's extremely hostile. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to confront this woman. This woman is a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen in our country.
His attorneys have already told the judge their client would not be appearing to testify in person. And the judge had warned Trump's lawyers that some similar disparaging remarks about Carroll on social media are extremely inappropriate and could be creating more legal trouble for the former president. The jury has heard Trump testify in a pretrial video deposition, which includes an exchange where Trump calls Carroll a whack job and mentally sick. Also in the deposition, Trump, who has mocked Carroll saying she's not his type, appears to mistake a picture of her for his ex-wife, Marla Maples, until his attorney corrects him.
Yes.
Whoa! In the deposition, the former president also responded to the infamous Access Hollywood video, played for the second time during the trial.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the...
Trump, as he has in the past, calling it locker room talk, while also saying his comments were largely true.
How are you feeling today?
Over several days, in addition to Carroll's at times emotional and tearful testimony claiming Trump raped her, 2 other women have alleged he sexually assaulted them.
I would like to express my support for E. Jean Carroll with her suit against Trump.
One in 1979, the other in 2005.
To support E. Jean Carroll, I believe E. Jean Carroll.
He does not face any charges in connection to those allegations and has denied any wrongdoing. And 2 close friends of Carroll's have backed up her story, testifying she told them about the alleged attack minutes and the next day after it happened. Carol Martin, a retired local TV anchorwoman, former colleague and friend of Carroll's, telling the court, "I am here to reiterate and remember what E. Jean Carroll told her about the alleged attack by Trump," adding, "I believed it then, and I believe it now."
Thanks to Ron Allen for that report. Closing arguments are expected to take place on Monday. Then the jury will begin deliberations. The big day is almost here for the UK and the British royal family.
That's right. King Charles and Queen Camilla will officially be crowned tomorrow in a symbolic and religious ceremony, which will feature traditions that date back centuries. Now, at 74 years old, King Charles will become the 40th monarch since the year 1066 to be crowned at Westminster Abbey in London.
That's a fun fact for you.
I know. It's just so fun when, we don't get to say things like that here in the U.S.
Back 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Right.
NBC News royal contributor Katie Nichol joins us now to talk more about this historic occasion. Hey, Katie, good morning. Thank you for joining us. So what is the mood like in the country ahead of tomorrow's event? What's it feel like there? How are preparations going?
Well, let me tell you, I've just walked from Buckingham Palace here to Westminster Abbey. I've spoken to people who have camped out, fans who are really gathering. There is a real sense that something momentous is going to happen in the country. We've just had the most epic downpour here, and as the heavens opened and the rain literally rained down on all of us, you could hear the cheers outside from the crowd. So I think there's a real sense of growing excitement. It's taking us a while to warm up to this event, but I think when it happens, it's going to be such a big moment because none of us have seen very few of us have seen a coronation before. This is a real first.
Yeah, and let's talk about what we will see for those. And I think there are many here in America who are going to get up at 6 a.m. Eastern to watch. What can they expect? I understand it's 5 stages, so help us understand how it's going to work.
Yes, so there are 5 stages. So this is a sort of 1,000-year-old ancient ceremony, and there's been a lot of talk of modernization. And you will see some modern elements in this, but the core 5 elements of the coronation, the recognition, the oath, the anointing, the investiture and the enthronement are all true to the ceremony that dates back centuries, and you will see all of that. What you won't see is that sacred moment of anointing. The king wants that to remain that private moment between him and God. But what you will see for the first time is a queen consort anointed with that holy oil. So I think it's going to be the most incredible spectacle. And of course, the military procession is going to be unlike anything that we've seen in our lifetime, even bigger than that at Queen Elizabeth's funeral. We've got 7,000 troops, including armed forces, not just from Britain, from around the Commonwealth and those realms, representing all of those many countries of which the King is head of state. So prepare for pomp, pageantry, and everything I think that Britain does best.
Katie, let's talk a little bit about the other side of this. Not everyone is quite, so thrilled about the event. Generally, support for the monarchy has been falling in some polls, and many have also criticized this specific event for being so expensive, this ceremony being so expensive during this cost of living crisis that the UK is experiencing. Sometimes this bill looks like it's up to $125 million. That a lot of times comes from taxpayer dollars. How is that impacting the popularity generally of King Charles and the royal family, support for the monarchy?
Well, it's really interesting because I think it's the minority who are critical of having a coronation that's costing hundreds of millions of pounds. There's a massive security operation. I think the majority are behind this. We've had a tough time here in Britain, had a cost of living crisis. We're all still getting over the COVID pandemic. This is an opportunity for the nation to come together. And I think people are actually really celebrating that sense of community, of actually having a moment where we can be proud of Britain, because it feels like quite a long time since we've had that. And you know what? The royal family costs us, I think it's £1.29, the cost of a first-class stamp per year. And I think when you look at what it's bringing in terms of the billions of tourism, the billions of pounds for tourism, and the hotels are packed, the restaurants are packed, the bars are packed. We've not seen this for some time. We actually need this. So it's a minority, I think, who are against it.
We also have to ask you about Prince Harry, who is going to be there without his wife, Meghan Markle, of course. First of all, do we know what kind of role he is going to have in this? And are we expecting a potentially awkward reunion here?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a reunion, to be completely honest. There's not going to be time for family tete-a-tetes. But I think, I think you're going to see Prince Harry taking a prominent position in the Abbey. I think it would look churlish to put him anywhere, in the background. He is the son of the King. We know there have been problems, but we also know that the King is keen to have some sort of a reconciliation with Harry. And I think the very fact that Harry's coming over here speaks volumes. Are we going to see a reconciliation between him and his brother? Don't count on it. But he's here for his father, and he's here to witness the most important day of his father's life. And I think it would look terribly strange if he wasn't here. I always said he'd be here, and he's coming.
Oof, all right. Well, it'll be good to see them together. I'm sure we'll all then analyze every movement,
every moment
of eye contact, all that kind of stuff after. Katie, thank you very much. Enjoy the celebrations.
There are growing calls for changes to Supreme Court ethics rules following a new report about Justice Clarence Thomas's relationship with a billionaire Republican donor. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett explains.
First, it was the private yacht, now private school tuition, the cozy relationship between a sitting Supreme Court justice and a wealthy GOP donor, prompting more calls for accountability and transparency on the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas facing more ethics questions after a ProPublica report that top Republican donor Harlan Crow picked up the private school tuition tab for Thomas's grandnephew, who he raised as his son. Federal law requires justices to report gifts, but Thomas did not disclose Crow's tuition payments. Yet he did report one made by somebody else in 2002. NBC News has not confirmed the ProPublica report. That tuition money now adding to a growing list of unreported perks ProPublica says Crow paid for, including luxury vacations for Thomas, a portion of his wife's salary, and Thomas's family home, allowing his mother to live rent-free. No comment from Thomas, who previously said he was advised he did not need to report those other gifts from Crow, a longtime friend who he says had no business before the court. Crow's office saying he has long been passionate about the importance of quality education. But Democrats are demanding a formal ethics code for justices.
The reputation of the Supreme Court is at stake here.
While Republicans argue Democrats are bitter about decisions from the court's conservative majority.
He's obviously been targeted because he's a conservative black man.
The reality is Democrats in Congress do not have the votes without GOP support to pass any new ethics reform in Congress, and so it will largely be up to the justices themselves to act or not. Back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you so much.
Well, earlier this week, we reported on comments by the U.S. ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, saying Washington was ready to repair ties with China and resume high-level talks. Relations between both countries have been at a low following issues like that spy balloon, of course, Taiwan, and the war in Ukraine. NBC News foreign correspondent Janice Mackey-Freyer spoke exclusively with Burns. She joins us now from Beijing. Hi, Janice. Good to see you. So the U.S. ready for high-level talks. Is China willing to participate is a big question here. Tell us a little bit about what you heard.
Well, U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns told me that the U.S. is ready to talk with China, but so far China does not seem to be interested in offering any sort of high-level access to U.S. officials. That includes a phone call between President Biden and China's President Xi Jinping, which has been talked about since February in the aftermath of that Chinese balloon being shot down. As well, there is no timeline to reschedule the canceled visit of Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The ambassador made these comments to me in an interview that we held earlier this week, and they're among the clearest signs yet that the administration is struggling to restore some sort of dialogue with Chinese officials. I asked the ambassador how problematic it is that China doesn't appear to want to talk to the U.S. at a time when it's diplomatic business as usual with Europe and other countries. Here's what he had to say.
It's an issue. Our instinct as a government is when the times are tough, when you're encountering big problems and big challenges in a bilateral relationship, that's when we should talk to each other. So it's not our choice. After the balloon crisis of February, the government here shut down some of the channels of communication. We don't think that's smart, and we're arguing with them. Let's open up the channels.
And there doesn't seem to be any hope for some of the issues that the two sides had hoped to find some common ground on, things like climate change and fentanyl. There's not even marginal progress to report there. Savannah?
Yeah, so, I mean, Janice, as you're mentioning, there's this whole host of issues where there is just so much daylight between these two sides. What did the ambassador say about that, about the U.S. bridging those differences and repairing ties when it comes to some of these specific issues that we don't seem to see eye to eye on?
Well, when we talk about the U.S.-China relationship, especially when U.S. officials talk about the U.S.-China relationship, they describe it as complicated, as complex, as one of competition but not of conflict. This is the wish list of adjectives for the relationship. I think right now the two sides find themselves at a very unique point in history. There's a situation where sometimes even at the ambassadorial level, there's just messages being passed back and forth, and there are no visiting members of Congress. There are very few American CEOs who are coming here. So all in all, it has this knock-on effect of a real political chill. Here's what he had to say.
We have concerns that our Secretary of State has expressed, Secretary Blinken, about whether or not China is going to provide lethal military assistance to Russia for its illegal war in Ukraine.
Have you seen evidence of that?
We've not seen evidence of that, but we're watching very carefully. We have a difference of opinion there. We see China essentially supporting Russia in this war. We have differences of opinion on Taiwan, but we need to have a stable relationship. You can achieve that sometimes, and we hope to in this case, by having high-level cabinet conversations, by having full access for all of our diplomats here in China, and that's what we're arguing for.
What we've also seen, Savannah, is in recent days, both publicly and in private, U.S. officials beginning to temper their language around China, especially on the issue of Ukraine, and not completely dismissing the idea that China could play a mediating role.
All right, Janice, great interview. Thank you for bringing that to us. Good to see you.
It is Friday, so you probably want to know what to expect this weekend. So let's give you your Morning News Now weather forecast.
And let's give you the original Morning News Now team. Bill Cairns joins us. And look, the three of us are all here.
Original's better than like old used up. So that's, you know. That's
vintage. Good. We're vintage.
Vintage, yes. Yeah, or straight from the 80s. The rain and thunderstorms we were tracking last night in Texas, we didn't have a lot of severe weather, but this morning it's not the prettiest of mornings in areas of Mississippi all the way through Louisiana. I'd say the award for the worst weather in the country right now, probably our friends in Baton Rouge. These thunderstorms just moved through, a lot of lightning with these, some gusty winds. Nothing that's going to ruin your day. You just don't want to get caught in it, so just wait inside for 20, 30 minutes if you can until that passes. Later on this afternoon, isolated severe weather. Again, May is our #1 month of the year for tornadoes. Knock on wood, so far we've been doing all right. We know we had an extremely rough April, so we deserve a little break. We could see isolated severe weather in central Texas once again today. Same spots as yesterday. It's not going to be widespread, but we'll keep an eye on that for you from Dallas to Fort Worth. And if we get the severe weather out of this, it'll likely be large hail, like baseball-sized hail would probably be the worst-case scenario. And, of course, that would ruin your day, especially if it hit your car or even your roof. So today's forecast looks like this. Summer-like heat before those storms, 95 in Dallas today. So that's summertime warm. Beautiful in Denver. Some areas of the country are seeing great weather. That continues today in areas in the Midwest, Chicago to St. Louis, no problem. I'm going to call it better in the Northeast. It's been miserable ever since that rainy weekend last weekend and kind of gloomy. It's going to be a little more peaks of sun, a little bit warmer, but your reward really comes this weekend. And still really not that nicer weather in areas of the Northwest, still kind of chilly and raw from Seattle all the way through Idaho and much of Oregon. So here's how the forecast looks this weekend. On Saturday, this is your reward day. Saturday and Sunday is about as nice as it gets for spring weather from the mid-Atlantic all the way up through the Great Lakes and up to northern New England. Just enjoy this. Get outside. I know a lot of people have all the yard work, a lot of extra baseball and lacrosse games because everything was canceled last weekend. We will see rainy weather continuing in some spots of the country. It's not going to wash you out, but we will see hit-and-miss storms on Saturday in the northern plains, and then on Sunday that heads into the Ohio Valley. Of course, we got one huge event this weekend. Today we got the Oaks at Churchill Downs, and then, of course, we wrap it all up with the Run for the Roses. That's on NBC tomorrow afternoon, and this should be okay weather, just some showers, cloudy conditions in the 70s. Should be a great party and a great time. And if you want your guaranteed winner horse, because I know, there's Kings. There's two horses with the name King in it. We have the Coronation tomorrow.
Oh.
So we got King's Barnes, and that's my horse.
Got it. That's a sign. Did you say baseball and lacrosse this weekend?
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
So specific.
That was very specific.
Well, there's other outdoor sports, too. We got, like, track and field events.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Ask me what I'm doing.
What are you doing?
I'm playing in a pickleball tournament tomorrow.
That's right.
See?
not lacrosse.
I will never leave out pickleball ever again.
See?
Right? Sports forecast.
Yes, please, Bill. Next time, make sure you include that. One of the leading sports in America.
Pickleball impression. All right. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.